So, in an essay by Jane Jackson titled Chronic Pain and the Tension Between the Body as Subject and Object, chronic pain is defined as any continuing pain that has lost its biological function. Chronic pain's object, or rather lack of object, is also its crises. Pain acts upon the body without permission, without one's will, and yet it is of the body, generated by the self. This in turn puts the self into crisis. One might ask, who is this me? Where would I go if I could go? Who would I be if I could be? What would I say if I had a voice? Who says this saying it's me? I'm not in his head, nowhere in his old body, and yet I'm there. For him, I'm there with him, hence all the confusion. That should have been enough for him to have found me absent, but it's not. He wants me there, with a form and a world like him, in spite of him, me who am everything, like him who is nothing. In 1985, there was a deadly explosion at the power plant where my father worked. This plant used coal slurry pumped into the station via pipeline from the nearby Hopi Navajo Reservation. Today, the plant is closed and the region has invested in solar technologies as an alternative means of generating power. Huge embankments of solar panels reflect onto towers that generate such intense heat that birds in the vicinity are found scorched to death. There is a convergence of neurological, psychological, and metaphysical crisis at this site. This site is the body. It is also a place. In an interview, my mother tells me, my migraines, they're hard to describe. It's like when I close my eyes, I see colors swirling like a kaleidoscope. It's like you took a bunch of paints and swirled them around, and sometimes I see shapes and even faces, and I can't get any sleep. Every time I close my eyes, something pops up. I suffered from severe migraines throughout puberty. My migraines were nothing like my mother's, although as their frequency began to subside, I realized that I could see strange phenomena, prodromal episodes that never resulted in pain's effects. Pain asymbolia, a dissociative disorder where the patient is able to experience pain without discomfort. They feel it, but it does not bother them. On the other end of the pain spectrum is allodynia, which is a painful response to even mild conditions. My mother's pain is my pain, which is not to say that I am in pain. I try to imagine her world with compassion and belief. She tries to tell me that I too am ill. I resist. For there to be hurt occurring in one person's hand and an image of a tree god in a second person's imagination is not an anticipatory mime of the structure of perception eventually relied on to confirm actualities in the external world. The wholly deconstructed relationship between body and belief, where the substantiated body belongs to one person and the substantiated belief belongs to a second person. Sentience and self-extension are now wholly severed and work against each other. That's a quote from Elaine Scarry's The Body in Pain. I imagine my mother as Joan of Arc, her fibromyalgic pain symbolic of her fervent faith, her migraines as gifts of sight, the loss of feeling in her feet as the sign of her cross to bear, the locking of her jaw as a reminder to speak. A painful body experiences a different world from the everyday world. Just like the ineffable world of dreams, daydreams, or deep religious or musical experience, the painful world has its own system of meaning, and its inhabitants have their own form of communicating that meaning. We can say this world has its own language, its own cognitive, affective style. It's a quote from Jane Jackson again. For one who experiences chronic pain, communication of pain is most often conscious and intentional. The quintessentially private state is dependent on the social to make it real. And yet to be ill is to be outside, and so to communicate one's pain with the consistency of one's experience is to be ostracized. One must choose a voice and a face to represent the unrepresentable. To reify one's experience is always a betrayal. There is always a metaphor. It is always not quite comprehensible. My words fail, so I search for other methods. My thesis project is a 4-minute video that attempts to communicate the unknowable that is bodily, that is memory, that is metaphysical, that is psychosocial, a project which is destined to inadequacy. Thank you.